Hey, RhinoCats, good afternoon, and welcome to Reading Comprehension Friday. Just like we did on Monday, we are going to be exploring topics related to reading comprehension, meaning whether you're understanding what you're reading. Today, we're going to be focusing on a five-finger retell, which is really awesome because it helps us remember or recall details from a story using our fingers, right? There's five components of a five-finger retell. So our five fingers on one hand can really help us remember details from a text. It can also help you find or identify the main idea or theme. Um, Basically the reason, once again, why the author is writing a text, what the author wants you to take away, maybe a lesson that you're supposed to learn. So knowing these components of a five-finger retell can really help us come up with that main idea or theme and really help us even more to take away meaning from our text. So super important. So just to refresh our memories on what makes up a five-finger retell, there are five parts, like we mentioned. And the first one is characters. So who or what is my story about? Characters can be people, they can be animals, right? Especially when we're reading a fictional or fake book, right? We may see things that don't really happen in real life, like magic or inanimate objects moving or coming to life. So we can see many different characters in our stories. There can be good characters, bad characters. We'll get into that a little bit later. The second component of a five-finger retell is our setting. So when and where our story is taking place. Did it take place a long time ago in a land far, far away? Is it taking place in modern times? Is it taking place in the future? Is it in a castle? So setting when and where your story is taking place. The third component is problem. So I have a little sad face next to problem because problem is something that goes wrong in our story. We need problems in our fictional or fake stories because they help entertain us. If there's no problem, it's probably going to be a boring story, right? There's going to be nothing to solve, nothing to work through, and there probably won't be a lot of themes or lessons to take away from a book where nothing bad happens. So problems are really important to our story. The fourth component of a five-finger retell is going to be the events. And characters, setting, problems, these can all be a part of the events that happen in our story. So events are going to be the beginning, middle, and end of our story. It's a great way to summarize or kind of briefly retell the plot of your story, what's happening in our story. So events, beginning, middle, and end, another component. And then finally, solution. This is also something that's a part of our events. I have a Band-Aid to represent solution because solution is how the characters have fixed the problem at the end of a story. So that's our happy ending. What happens to fix the issues in our story? How are we overcoming obstacles? And the solution is really going to teach us a lot about theme and main idea. So what are we taking away from this story? All right, RhinoCats. So today what I want to do is I want to practice doing a five-finger retell with a book that we're all probably familiar with. And then I want to give you your assignment to do independently. So the five-finger retell I want to practice today is going to be on Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And if you haven't heard the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears before, it is basically about a little girl. Her name is Goldilocks, and she's called that because she has long blonde hair, or golden locks. And she kind of wanders into the woods one day, into a house in the woods that is owned by a family of bears who happens to be out for the afternoon. Goldilocks comes into the house. She makes herself at home by trying to eat their porridge or their meal that they had for themselves that day. So she eats the little bear's porridge. She breaks a chair. She ends up falling asleep in the bear's home, and when they arrive, they catch Goldilocks in the house. They scare her. There are three big bears, and she leaves and promises to never wander into another stranger's home again. So, what I want to do is break down this story and talk about its different components. So the characters, or first our story title is Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And then our characters in our story are who or what our story is about. Goldilocks is a main character and our three bears, right? As far as setting, when and where our story is taking place, there's several different versions of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, but we don't really have a set place or a set time period for this story. Basically, what we know is that it's a house in the woods and it's taking place during the day. And that's all the detail you really need to know for your setting. That's fine if that's all you can come up with. The problem in our story is that Goldilocks is wandering into a house that's not hers, right? She's eating a family's meal. She's breaking their chair. She's sleeping in their beds. That's a problem. She shouldn't be doing that in somebody else's home. And then another big problem is that they come home and find her, and they have to deal with a little girl in the house full of three big scary bears. So for Goldilocks, that's a problem for her, right? She doesn't want to be eaten by bears. And for the bears, it's a problem because they have somebody that's been eating all the stuff in their house and breaking all the stuff in their house. They have an intruder. So the solution is she leaves, and she promises to never come into a stranger's house again. She's so scared by the experience. So it's a good lesson for Goldilocks, and it's a good lesson for everybody reading the story to take away that you shouldn't be wandering into strangers' homes and messing with their things. So we heard a little bit about the problem, events, and solution all right then, right? They're all kind of tied together. Those events touch on the problem and solution. And then you heard me too already go into the theme and main idea, because once I knew that the problem was Goldilocks has wandered into this house and broken these things, I can take away from the story that that's not a good idea and that was problematic for Goldilocks. I shouldn't do that either. So Five Finger Retell, really awesome for just making sure you remember the details from the story, and that you're able to take those components and figure out a theme or main idea with them. So guys, what I'm challenging you to do today with Five Finger Retells is we have been listening to Miss Chrissy read James and the Giant Peach in our class at school. We've also heard her read James and the Giant Peach for us on YouTube this week. And I want you guys to take what you have heard from Miss Chrissy, and I want you to do a Five Finger Retell on James and the Giant Peach. Okay, so I want to know, who are my characters in James and the Giant Peach? What is the setting? Where and when is the story taking place? If it takes place in a few different locations, that's fine. Tell me about them. What is the problem in our story? There may be a few problems that James and other characters have to overcome. And I don't know if Miss Chrissy's gotten to the end of the story, but if there has been some solutions already along the way, talk about those. If we do have an ending to our story, definitely talk about the solution. So you can do this in a couple different formats, guys. If you want to write down a Five Finger Retell, that's awesome. If you want to organize it like I did, if you want to draw out art characters, setting, problems, solution, feel free. If you just want to talk about it out loud with a grown-up or sibling, you can also do it that way. Basically, I just want us to talk about James and the Giant Peach, what we have learned from our story so far, and break down the story into those different components using our Five Finger Retell. All right, guys, good luck. I will be in touch.